Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzo, your host of the Leaders What podcast today for episode 312 or 13. I'm talking with my new good friend, Mr. Endre Hoffman, also known as the Doctor of Self-Worth. We got connected about 2-3 weeks ago by our common good friend, Anaiis, and we had a good chat before Christmas. And right away, I knew that I had to bring Endre on the podcast because he has a great story, great impact. A little bit about him. He's, as I said, known as a doctor of self-worth. He's been helping people with their self-worth, self-image, having their new self and removing the negative voice in their head, removing the limiting ideas and limiting beliefs, whether they be from childhood or from even for some people, even from past lives. He helps them with health, money, relationships, and business, anything to do with those self-limiting beliefs and ideas. And he's been doing that for 5 years now. He got into that by first overcoming his own issues, his own, getting his life in order. And then after that, he's been now doing it successfully for others. So I'm excited to have him here with us today. There's so much we can cover, and we'll unpack all of that. So, Endre, welcome to the show, my friend.
How are you? Great to be with you here.
Pleasure all mine. I'm doing really well. How are you doing today? How's your day today so far? I know it's early morning for you in Europe. How are you doing?
I don't know how early it is. Probably about 10. I didn't watch the exact time, but yeah, I don't even know what day it is. So always excited to be. If this is called work, I love it,
I know.
and that's why I don't really live the Monday to Sunday.
9 to 5. Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. So for people who don't know you, tell us. We're going to talk about your business and all that in a moment. But first, as a man, as a person, as a human being, who's Endre?
Who is Endre? Well, did you want to sort of go back in the past who I was, or
Up
because
to
I could
you.
go expand on this? Well,
Give
for
us
me,
an overview, a short overview, and we'll unpack all of that. This is about you as a person, the businessman, all that. We're going to talk about that in a moment. As a man, as a human being, who's Endre?
well, I was born in the 70s in Central Europe, and things didn't go well, especially with my dad. So, as a human being, I probably have chosen, or I was just maybe unlucky, but I found myself with a dad who did not love me, or I never felt the love or the acceptance I was probably longing for. And from those times, I became very insecure with lack of confidence, lack of self-belief. He was quite angry, pretty fearful, and highly critical. So he found me, caught me off guard all the time, found something that I haven't done or haven't done well enough. And I still remember those words sometimes, you will not amount to anything, useless. So yeah, that was a hard start. I became very shy. I could not really talk in front of others. My face went red. And then I became a type A personality. I started to, hit winning championships in basketball at age 15 with the team. I was the captain. Ice climbing, running marathons, and I didn't know for a long time that I was angry because I could not win. This wounded father could not still love me, whatever I achieved, or probably, and even my grandfather, they didn't have the word congratulations or well done in their vocabularies. So I just couldn't be enough for them. And then I thought probably I have to get away from them as far as I can. And first I ended up working in banking because I was so disconnected from myself that I thought, well, the logic was this: if I don't know who I am and what I'm here to do, then it's better if I have money. So I looked up what the sector's been paying at the time. Banking was the highest. I said, well, I'll be working in banking, because it would be even worse if I didn't know who I am what I'm here for, and I have no money. I said that that would be the end. And also probably because security for me was tied, safety was tied to money, making money. And and this is how I ended up in banking for 5 years. And at that time, because it was a communist country, the whole economy was turning around 5 year terms. It was coming good old Russia. So that they planned 5 years ahead. And that's what I started to do, because I said, well, I have no clue what I should do with my life. Then I said, well, I will live little 5 year lives, and hopefully I learned something in the process, that I'm not sort of wasting my whole life in a job and finding out in 40 years that hopefully I will be a pensioner one day and I can do whatever I want. Did you want to ask me anything, or you want me to just go on?
Keep going, keep going.
So
We'll
so
unpack it
this is
after. Yeah, that's
this was the logic, and I understand at one point that maybe if I get away from my dad, things will improve, or I will get better, or I will find things out. And first I moved to Ireland. That was probably the year 2001. So I tested what it's like to be away from my country, away from family. And it was really good. I realized that this English language somehow, maybe from a past life, the acceptance, the level of acceptance was really inviting. So I said, well, let's jump a bigger one. Then I moved to New Zealand for 7 years.
wow.
That was probably in 2002, and it was a jump in the dark. I had a girlfriend at the time, and we said, well, let's go to New Zealand. And
What was the
and
reason? What was the reason to go to New Zealand? What was the purpose? What made you go there?
Well, I knew later, I realized that New Zealand is the farthest point, and we're talking about subconscious mind here. That was the farthest point on earth from my dad. So, so as far as I can,
Wow.
because he was still quite toxic, and our interactions probably reduced to a phone call every 2-3 months, and that was quite perfect.
Mhm.
And but things didn't improve in my head. Now that was a really painful realization, that I'm still carrying his voices in my head. And unfortunately, because of my patterns of lack of self-worth, all of those things, this relationship didn't work out. So my partner, my girlfriend, through going through immigration, all of that, she just decided one day, well, I'm going to marry someone, and then I will be easier to stay in New Zealand. So I was left on my own. I was working as a beverage attendant. I worked on,
Wow.
these 8 people vans. They call it super shuttle from the airport, multiple drop-offs, multiple pickups. Like, it was insane. I didn't even know the city when I started the job. And at that time there was no GPS. So I pretty much had the street directory on my lap. It was
The old maps. Yes, yes,
it
yes.
was so stressful. I remember I was hoping to just live another day, because I didn't know the locations, and I was towing a trailer which had all the bags. so, so it was a hard start for me. And somehow I ended up working for GE Money, the big American company.
Mm.
But again, the patterns kept me in never feeling satisfied. The question just kept popping up in my head. Why am I here? For what am I doing here? And I decided, well, probably I have to let this go. And I just wanted to travel, to look for spiritual gurus, probably some in Asia where you are. And I was hoping that I will find some answers, or they will point out what's wrong with me, because the question was wrong. The question was, what's wrong with me? And so eventually I traveled 70 countries on 5 continents, and I've learned a lot.
70. Wow.
Yes, uh,
Wow.
because I thought, I decided to use traveling as a self-reflection, to use it for personal growth, because I knew that I traveled, probably I will be triggered in some situations, and that always happens, India and Africa, the Maasais. So I realized if these people are okay with what's happening here, probably there is something in me that is my rules about life or my values. So I started to learn a lot of mental and emotional, flexibility, let's say, or realizing that, there are things are done in very different ways on this planet, especially about, for example, death. Like there are places on this earth where they celebrate it. Like, well, that's interesting.
Absolutely.
Well, so this was the story, but then because I found someone in New Zealand, we moved back to Hungary for another 3-4 years where I had my first son. And this, let's say, the virus of freedom really caught me. I said, well, we've got to find a way. And then I started to launch a few network marketing businesses, and they all failed because I still had the patterns of not good enough or not worthy. And I was driving these businesses down the ground. And then came Australia. I said, well, because I was always in this escape route. This is not working here. Let's go out to Australia because that's the land of plenty. and yes, in 2012 we moved to Australia, and the second child was on the way, and that has put on me so much pressure because I realized, I'm now a dad. I have 2 children. There's no more traveling. I'm locked up into this relationship, and at one stage I hated my life. I hated my wife. I hated my children because they were consuming my money.
You felt like
And
you were trapped. Yeah.
I wasn't producing enough. I started working 12-hour days, and I started to do a home business to break out of the job. I even had this mantra, and really watch mantras if you're listening to us now, because I said to myself, 12-hour work days to survive. And then the home business is to break out of the job. And it didn't work. It didn't work for 5 years. We were still stuck. And I remember that was that 1 week that changed pretty much everything for me. My whole psychology was when I almost had a few accidents because I was driving at night, driving trucks that was paying good money. And I got home and I had the kids. We had this sort of connection time when I was reading out stories, bedtime stories. And again, it turned out to be a slapping competition. How does that happen? I always told my kids, if I fall asleep, then you can slap me in the face. So, little children, it's terrible. Like inside, I said, how could I exactly end up at the same place of being a victim of my own mind and becoming exactly an angry person inside, like my dad, who I hated the most and who I was running away from most of my life. And the next morning after this, my wife asked me whether is it time for us to divorce.
Oh, wow.
That was probably the lowest point in my life. And I said, well, probably I'm a failure. This can't go on like this anymore.
Wow.
It has to stop. Yeah, I was so overworked. I was slow sleep. And I was so like I knew what a good citizen do. Like Sundays, I went to I was working for RFS. It's a rural fire service. So I was volunteering my time. My wife was so upset. Like, what are you doing? You're working 5-6 hours a week and you're going volunteering on Sundays. And I said, is that not what we're supposed to do? So it didn't work. And at that point, I gave up all of my goals that I had before. I had massive financial goals, house, all of those things. I said, well, if I got to this point, then probably it's time for me to let everything go. And I said to myself, I didn't believe that change is possible for me. It was that bad. But I said, if I'm able to resolve this, the psychological challenge or things with my dad. I didn't know what's the problem exactly. Then this is my last and final goal in my life, and I'm be happy to drop that at age 80 or 90 or 100 and still trying to resolve this. And I will not care about anything else. I will not spare money or time. So this is 34 years of struggle, looking like I studied religion, like I did everything. I spent by that time $100,000 on personal development, on Tony Robbins events and Brian Tracy. I've been on all of them, and I would say, well, they could not fix me, or I didn't allow them to fix me. But at that time, I was so committed. From there, it only took me 6 months to find a mindset coach and do the uncomfortable, let's say, sessions to spring clean, to clean up my head and my heart. And that was the beginning of the journey, or the birth of the Doctor of Self-Worth. One of my first clients, because I realized then there are always 2 or 3 big, let's say, limiting ideas or patterns are keeping people hostage to really not get what they want in life. And one of my first clients, because I always try and find the root, to shift the biggest possible thing in every session for each of my clients. Then she said, well, you are like a doctor. You're like a doctor of self-worth, because you're not wasting time. You're really going fast. So the brand came from a client of mine. I'm so grateful. And ever since, I've been helping clients to do the journey not in 30 years and 40 years and wasting decades and money and relationships, but do it fast, do it rapidly, and really find their purpose and how they could play life.
Yeah. Wow, what a journey. There's so much we can cover. We can do an entire episode just on unpacking every section of that, but let's move on. I will definitely come back to that, because that's something that I want to know more deeper. There's so many golden nuggets you mentioned, so many key turning moments in your life that could be not only an entire podcast by itself, but even topics for books. You mentioned, how do you overcome the constant bullying, lack of support, love, care from your father, your grandfather? That's devastating for a young boy growing up. That could be an entire thing. And then you wanting to go away, first to the island, and then all the way. I'm sure if you could, you would even go to Mars, back then, just to leave this as far as away. But this is very intriguing, very captivating, actually, to see what was the motivating factor, and also what was going on in your mind, you as a young boy and then young man growing up. So you're saying that your father was not supportive. How about your mother?
See, mom was trying to make peace at home. So she swallowed, because my dad was a bully, but I never used that word before. So let me give you a bit of a context to this.
Sure.
In my childhood, in my first 20 years, I've never seen one healthy father and son relationship. So it was quite like we had 3 big fights. It was really physical with my dad.
Oh, really? Physical too? Wow. Not just words.
Unfortunately, but this was quite common. Like I didn't know this.
He would beat you up, or you would defend yourself. It
was the way he treated my mom. That was my trigger. Like he was actually controlling money, and by controlling money, he was taking away the means for us to live. And that was like, my mom had to start a business for herself to provide for the 2 kids. I had a sister as well. So, dad went, because he was so under pressure at his entrepreneurship, his work. And this was the other thing, that I never went on the entrepreneurial journey. I've seen this father who was completely stressed, killing his business partners, he basically kicked them out one by one, 17. So he owns the business 100%. But, you know, his taglines are everyone is stupid, blaming everyone else, and slowly taking charge and taking the ownership of that business. So he was a very difficult person to be around. But I found out later in Australia, and I'm just back from Australia sort of 6 months ago with my family, is that this is classified as domestic violence. I didn't know this. And
Sure, yeah.
the way my dad kind of released the pressure, I found another way, but I tell you, because this is interesting. So my dad released the pressure by sort of going out. This was in the 80s and 90s. In Central Europe, they went out drinking with family and friends. And then there were these running amok things. Like I remember when he was driving us home, because he had to drive even when he was drunk. You know, he rolled the car. It was really
Oh,
bad. And then he wouldn't allow anyone else to drive after that point when we found some people and it was rolled back. It was unreal, almost like a movie.
did your father
And
have a military background, a police background?
no, let me just give you some context. He
Sure.
was ousted from the family at the age of 20 because my grandfather was even worse. He was a very angry, very critical person, and these two never came out okay with each other. They were just, again, bullying each other. But my grandfather, he was an alcoholic. So my grandfather lived by rules. He had his rules. Like when I went to visit them, you, you, I was not allowed to drink until I finished the meal, and I had to eat fast. But this was in sort of 1985. But my grandfather was in the war, where he found himself as a prisoner of war, and where these rules applied. Imagine subconscious mind still applied 30 years later the rules that he had to go through in a prison camp. So I started to become really fascinated with these patterns that rules people's lives, or maybe they allow these old experiences to then
Mm,
take charge of their lives. So I knew something about the mind was the key to my transformation.
absolutely. Wow, what a story. What a story. You know, this is a kind of story that I know it's very painful to go through that, but then this is a kind of story that would be really a gift to share in a book, the lessons. You know, if especially if your mother is still around, just interview her, you know, and then ask her stories. Ask her to try to understand what happened, to get deeper into the psyche of her father when they first met. Was he always like that? And how, what changed him, and, you know, what caused him to be that stressful? I mean, at a much, much deeper level. Do you have any siblings?
Yes, it's a really good thing that you're asking this. So as I said, my grandfather was an alcoholist, an aggressive one. So my grandfather was a victim of that. So he never had alcohol in his life, or a tiny one, and no more. So every rule, he had these rules. But about siblings, now that really tells you the other side of the pattern, because what I found, if someone is exposed to these, let's say, wounded parents, then the mind could respond in different ways. But we either go to the extreme and take on those patterns, or we become the opposite and find our way out of that jungle. So my sister, she has ended up, I couldn't believe it, she has ended up pretty much with a husband like my dad. Not aggressive, very controlling, massively controlling. I just found out 2 days ago. We are here in Budapest. You know, she has to be at home. When the husband is at home, she has to be at home. That's the rule. So she was called to go home because
Wow.
he needed her services. Or I don't know what it's about, but it's unbelievable how far the patterns could go, and obviously attraction.
Soul ties.
of that. See, my sister would have had love to man modeled with my dad. Highly critical, very controlling, manipulative, all of that. Now she's got 3 children and she lives the life and she is swallowing like my mom.
Yeah,
Tough.
this is traumas that are way deeper, like maybe even soul ties at the soul level. Um, Fascinating. Wow. One thing this is fascinating. I don't want to push this for later, but this is fascinating. One thing I learned, and I shared that to you last time when we spoke briefly, that I had my own awakening 3 years ago. Well, for the past 3 years since the pandemic, since I started my podcast, and I shared with you something. One of the things that completely changed my life is understanding the tremendous power of questions and asking the right question. Before that, when something bad happened to me, I would ask the wrong questions and disempowering questions, such as, "Why me?
Yeah.
What did I do to deserve this? Why did I end up in such a family? Why do I have such a controlling father?" For example. And when I asked those questions, I would never get the answer. It would always make me get into a vicious circle. But then I learned to ask a better, much more empowering question, such as, what is this trying to teach me? What is the lesson for me to learn to it? And I shared a story of me and my father going through cancer and passing away, him going from me, and I'm a very fit guy, not able to keep up pace with him when we went on walks the previous summer, to me literally carrying him on my shoulder to go from his bed to the bathroom. And he would take him 45 minutes, an hour to pee because he had bladder cancer. It was very painful for him to pee. And stupid me, I was telling him, "Come on, hurry up. We don't have all time." I used to be very impatient. I used to blow up for no reason. But then I started to reflect, hey, wait a second. This is a man that is very sick. This is a man potentially dying. Slow down. I'm the eldest son. I was very, very spoiled by my father. My father was a geologist, psychologist, all traveling around the world, bringing me toys. But the greatest gift he gave me was just before he left us, and that was he opened my heart, allowed me to be much more compassionate, understanding. So when me going through cancer, and that's something I would not wish even to my worst enemy, to see someone in the family go to cancer, because the worst thing you see your person that you love dying in front of you, literally day by day, and you can't do anything. That's one of the worst things you can go through. Me going through that, it was horrible. But what allowed me to keep my sanity and survive it was understanding about spirituality, that we all have multiple lives and all that. But most importantly, asking empowering questions. What is this trying to teach me? What is the lesson for me to learn? When I was going to that, I did not know that at the time because I wasn't awakened yet. But then now when I look at that event and other very challenging times of my life, when I ask those 2 questions, what is it trying to teach me? What is the lesson for me to learn to that? Then I understand that this was a beautiful gift. Now, let me turn that to you, Endre. You grew up in a very difficult environment, what you're saying, with a very aggressive, bullying father. Sure, it was very painful for you to go to that. But now when you look at that from the lens of spirituality and the lens of that question, what was us trying to teach you? For example, you said that you went from being shy, very low self-esteem, self-confidence, to becoming all of a sudden a type A personality, which is a complete opposite. Do you think that if you had grown up with a loving, caring, supportive father, you would have become that person, the winner that you are now, that very impactful person? If you put everything in perspective at a bigger picture, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, what a great question this is.
Thank you.
I went as far as somebody channeled information from my dad about 2 years ago, or maybe 3 years ago. And I actually thought, well, if I could, one of my clients got this breakthrough, so she's able to contact souls on the other side, or the dead, talk to the dead.
Wow.
And you know what the answer was? I actually asked my dad at the time that channeled information. I asked, why have you been such...
You mean that person channeled the pre-birth planning?
So
Yeah.
no. She has this a window in her mind, and she can contact and talk to the dead. So she asked the question from my dad on the other side. My dad died about 6 years ago, but she asked him, why have you been such a pain in the ass? And you know what the answer was? And that really hit me. The answer was, you wouldn't have been so open to inquire and discover the world, so you could have an amazing life. So it looks like we are part of a
Soul family.
plot on Earth.
That's it.
And I hear you absolutely. My life finally started to make sense. If I look at this as, so you see, I bring this example most of the time, is imagine if you came to Earth to be part of an amazing movie.
That's
Like,
it. It's a play.
who would want to be in a laminate, to sit in a low-key comedy? Like when you buy a ticket to a cinema, right? You want to be on the ups and downs and maybe have a happy end. That's what you want. You want to be to the extremes of the sorrow and sadness, and then taken to the maximum happiness and joy. And maybe we are part of that game here.
Mm.
But that one thing that you said is I really want to just expand on a bit. Is you said empowering questions, and I was running, and this is the problem with the human mind, and this is where coaches are must have. They are the fast lane, because left to my own devices, to my own mind, my questions were, why me, as you said, and what have I done wrong? Now imagine if your mind at that point is Google search, and that point, your mind, you're putting these questions, you entering the search field, but the database is everything that happened to you in the past. It's not total amount of information out there, it's what you have experienced. So the limitation, a mind left to its own devices, is going to self-sabotage, it's going to self-destruct.
Absolutely. Wow.
I didn't know for 39 years, 35 years.
Wow. Powerful. Wow. Wow. That's phenomenal. It's very powerful, very captivating. So when you add this channeling done, and you understood the reason why your father was so tough, such a pain, as you put it, once you understand the real highest reason for that, did you get to a point of almost not only understand, but also almost being grateful for him in a way, and thanking him, and even for, sorry, not first of all, forgiving him, and then being grateful and thankful for, oh, it was basically your way to prepare me, to train me, to get me ready for what, because you mentioned it's a, you know it, life is a play. Before we're born, we get around with people and they say, okay, what do you want to learn in this lifetime? I want to learn about, for example, self-love, self-confidence. Okay, who wants to play the role of the tough guy with me, my tough father? We have all soul families. That person decides to be your very tough father. And then another person, your mother, which is more the nicer, quieter, to balance things a little bit, you know? Tough father, loving, caring mother to balance it out. And then once the play is over, once the curtain falls, everybody high five. Oh, you did it very well. Next time, I want to be the tough guy. You be nice, but keep it easy on me, you know? High five. It's the play. Literally, it's a play. Once I understood this, I swear to you, I am not fearing death. Doesn't mean I don't want to die, but I'm not afraid of dying, because just at night, when you sleep, when I sleep, you know, in the morning, you wake up, fresh, brand new day ahead of you. Same thing here. Once one play, one movie is over, you play another one. In this life, you're the son, your father is a father. Maybe in the next life, you're the mother, he's the daughter, and so on and so forth. Because the soul wants to experience everything: being rich, being poor, being handicapped, being a famous, being a king, being a beggar. The soul wants to experience everything. Once I understood that, then I said, okay, that allowed me not only to forgive everyone, but also make the most of life. Understand what life is. Life is a, you know, there's a cheesy line, life is a game, like any game, learn the rules and play by the rules.
Wow,
That's it.
this is so insightful, and I cannot agree more, because in my journey I was looking for these answers. I remember that one line really got me. I think Shakespeare said this in the 1500s. I think Shakespeare said something like, what if life is a stage and we are all just players or actors?
That's it.
But another one was the book I read from Michael Newton. I think it's called Journeys of the Soul.
Love
Now,
it.
probably I've offered that book, recommended that book to probably 500 people ever since.
Same here. I
Because,
actually sent a copy to a cousin of mine in California
yeah,
after her mother passed away.
yeah, I'm saying to people, look, to shift grief, sometimes you need to gain another perspective, another reality, so it won't hurt. Of course, some people are absolutely not ready. They choose to suffer a long time and even be traumatized. But there's always a bigger picture, and that really helps you to put things into perspective. But what changing the perspective means, changing viewpoint, means freedom, means the freedom that you have, Payman, and probably I have, because I realized things don't need to be a certain way, and there is nothing to hang on to, either in the future, either in the past. Yet this is not the reality for a lot of people.
You know, just like an easy metaphor. Next time you go on your, take your car, drive on the highway, on the street, you see there's lanes. Each car is their own lane. You go to your direction. I'm on the next lane to you. I go in my direction. You get there when you're meant to arrive. So basically, cars follow the lanes. If two cars come into the same lane, that's what trouble is, accident. Same thing here. Just like in school, some people learn faster, some people learn a little bit later, but at the end, everybody learns at their own pace. So meaning, it's not my job, your job, or anyone's job to try to force someone to awaken. They will get it at the right time. And some people, just like you said, they may decide before being born not to awaken in this lifetime at all. Some people. And it's okay. Let's not judge them. It's okay. It's not that they're stupid or they're retarded. No, no, no. That's what they chose. We have to respect that. And once I understood that, that also, I told you when I used to be very impatient. I used to blow up for no reason. For example, the waiter takes too long. Hey, how long? Why is it taking too long or whatever? Blow for no reason. But then now, the people that know me, that haven't met me for 5 years, when they see me, say, "Well, what happened to you? Are you the same person?" Seriously, once you understand that, see, there's no need to get upset. Why? You know, life becomes so much beautiful, more meaningful.
Yes, I did put some, let's say, ballpark numbers to how the population of this planet are falling into kind of categories. Just recently, obviously, they are maybe just my numbers and my guesses, but I said, well, if we have X amount of people, then percentage-wise, probably half of them or 30% of them are pretty much sleeping through their life.
Oh yeah.
And never wake up. That there are possibilities, there is different ways of doing things, and there's another, let's say, 30% who are victims. So they say, well, this is not working, this is shit, I didn't want this. They sometimes run those sabotaging patterns. And then there's another 30% who get that in some way, they don't understand how, that was me, in some way they are responsible for the situations they are in, and they have contributed in some way to the stuff that's not working in their lives. Now these are the people, they are, you know, like me, I read hundreds of books, self-help books, seminars, firewalking, I've done all of these things. Yet then then there's that 10%, I believe, that 5%, 10% who comes and they may come out from the 30% who are searchers, seekers, who says, enough. I wasted 20, 30, 40 years in my life and I'm done. I don't care what it takes. They get to that. I say when they become from 95% to 100% committed, plan B, C gone, and then shift happens. And these are the people I'm actually looking for, because change does not need to take a long time. Change could be really fast because trauma was installed really fast in the past. It has become a repetition, but the root of it was 1 second when there was really major negative emotions and unfortunately limiting ideas installed. It could be shifted in a half an hour on one pattern easily.
Wow, powerful. You know, one of the powerful things I learned is that, you know what's the difference between life and between school? In school, they test you first, then you get, so no. You get the lesson, they teach you the lesson and then you get tested, and life is the other way around. You get tested first through experiences, trauma, tragedies, heartbreaks, whatever. Then you learn the lesson. And if you don't learn it, then you have to go to that same thing again. And each time it's more painful until they finally say, okay, enough. And I noticed that in trends in my own life. I was just looking over the main events of my life and I realized, oh my God, the same pattern repeating itself. Why? Because I didn't learn the lesson. And each time it's more and more painful. Same thing for everyone. We cannot force ourselves to tell someone, hey, wake up. No. Because, we have it's human nature. If when you tell someone, whether it's as a child or an adult, don't do that, guess what? They'll be 10 times more motivated to do it. It's rebel in us. Let them do it. Just like how does a child learn not to touch the oven or not to ride a bicycle? Sure, they will fall a couple of times. Let them fall. Let them burn their hand just a little bit on the oven. Then they will understand. Then you won't have to tell them. But if you tell them, hey, don't touch that, the one thing in their mind will be, let me touch that. It's the same thing here. It's not our goal, our job to push people. Just like the saying, when the student is ready, the teacher shows up. And when the student has learned the lesson, the teacher disappears.
Wow.
Same
You
thing
said
here.
it so beautifully. My understanding is that,
Thank you.
each person who has been sort of having this wonderful human experience, I understand there is, let's say, a plot or a plan.
It's a play.
It's freedom to wake up from the plan. And there is, let's say, crossroads installed in every year or quite regularly for those who are ready to learn and wake up, and they do not need to live as a victim for all their lives. All they need to do is sometimes asking for help. And that was a massive one for me. I said, well,
still for me is today, sometimes.
So yes, there is a breakout plan. There is a new version of themselves, yet by running the same circles in their head, outside will never be different.
Yeah. So many things, man, that come to mind. This is completely so beautiful as a conversation, but you said that growing up, because of the environment, because of the lack of care, support, and love from your father, you were very shy, so low self-esteem and all that. And then you went and sought refuge, so to speak, into sports to regain your self-confidence and all that. Talk to us about why did you choose sports and not, for example, say music or any other arts or painting or I don't know if that was even an option back then in the 80s in Europe, you know, it would have laughed you up or beat you up because that was my case. You know, my father's in a way was similar to yours. My father was very, very, very highly educated, and he was always telling me, oh, especially when I was, you know, 20, under 25. When I was 22, I'll get my master's. You still don't have any idea what you're doing with your life. I'm ashamed of you. But I know he was saying that to get me going, to motivate me, but that was his way of saying it, you know? So how did you, and of course, back then, me growing up in Europe, of course, like most boys in Europe, want to be football players. And my father was not very supportive of that. He said, come on, do something serious, you know? But so
Well,
you, why, what was the appeal of sports for you in a way to escape and to refine yourself?
very simple and very easy answer, because unfortunately, with their patterns, my parents were working hard for 5 days. They had 3 pieces of land. There was some grapes or a vineyard type of thing. We had another plot of land 100 kilometers away near Lake Balaton, which is a place to swim and have fun. I never got any of that. It was 5 kilometers, a plot of land with 40 fruit trees. So after working 5 days, they drove down. They worked their ass off for 2 days. They were complaining, oh, there's so much work. They had a look at that beautiful land which was standing and taken care of. And I have been with them for a while, working over the weekend. Like it's not fun for a child to, you know, pulling out weeds. And, you know, we built structures then, like it was working. I hated it. So basically, and then my father, when he's tired driving home, he wouldn't stop for a swim at Lake Balaton. And I said, fuck this. I can't understand that he's working 5 days a week. Then there is these 3 plots of land. They are killing themselves literally, physically, mentally, and emotionally. I said, what's my easiest way out? Subconscious mind, remember that. What's my way out to have a life? And I realized, oh, if I do sports, I've seen kids are having games to attend over the weekend, so they can't take me. And I realized after a while that I had played in 2 championships, so I had sometimes even Saturday and Sunday a game. I said, well, this is great. And at that one point I realized, oh, they wouldn't know when the games are. So I just said, well, I have a game today. I'm sorry, I can't come. And they wouldn't even know if it was real or not. But they basically allowed me to be me and remove myself from this massive, it's slavery, I believe.
Yeah.
And this was normal because this is how people were spending their weekends.
Two questions. Why? So you said you chose basketball, right?
Yeah.
Why basketball? Why not football or gymnastic or tennis or whatever?
You're so right. I think somehow at first I went to try myself on the soccer field. And I think I would have been a good soccer player, I believe, as well. But I think somebody, and I had a few, because I was playing soccer then in the environment I was living. I was always it was a big housing estate, and I actually spent a lot of time playing soccer in my childhood. It was so much fun. But as far as competition, I think it turned out that it's a rough game. People get injured, and probably wasn't true, but somehow I turned over to basketball because I had a PE teacher, and he was absolutely crazy about basketball. So when there was 5 or 6 of us, he took us down to the local sort of top of the line basketball club, and we have beaten those kids. Then we realized, oh, we have actually gained quite a good, this was age 8 or 9.
Wow.
Then I realized, oh, we've already got a level where we were able to beat a local club. The club was about basketball. So it was like, well, why not play there and win what we can. So this is how I ended up playing basketball.
Were you a tall boy growing up?
No, I was the smallest one. I pretty much been the second, you know, on the line, because we had to line up on every PE class, and I was the second one all the time. But it didn't matter. But it was a big painful moment when I realized at age 16, because this club was one of the biggest clubs in Budapest, Hungary. And they said, oh, we are actually training kids to be top players and maybe be sold overseas, all of that. And then at age 16, I was okay until that. I'm 175 high, so not too high for a
Basketball,
basketball
yeah.
player. But then you know what they said? Ah, they haven't told you that you need to grow higher to be a professional player, and they just chucked us on the side at that point, pretty much. And I was more interested in school and girls by that time. So it was a great experience, because I believe sometimes you find in other communities, like working together, supporting each other, encouragement. This all came from sports for me, because I couldn't find it from my dad or
Absolutely.
in my family.
You know, for me as well, the two biggest schools of life have been sports and travel. I learned the greatest lesson. So you use basketball. What was your position?
I don't even have the term, but that player
The,
up the top, the playmaker.
okay, the point guard. Okay, point guard. Okay.
Hmm.
Were you a good shooter, a dribbler, or
Yeah, I was able to, move the team and encourage them. I think that was a big one, because you, maybe you've come across this, that the people who you get attracted to, they usually have similar patterns of lack of self-worth, lack of self-confidence, and this was probably special about me, that
Hmm.
that I was able to keep the spirit up in the team. So nudging and giving encouragement and really supporting other players more on the emotional side. I didn't realize this, for another 10 years after that, but that's why they like me.
So a couple of things before I lose the train of my thoughts. So first, when you were the one, the moral support, the leader, and all that, that was in a way for you to train you to what was awaiting for you to what you're doing now, coaching. We're gonna talk about coaching after. I'm pretty sure we're gonna do 2 or 3 episodes, because this is beautiful. I don't want to cut this conversation. We're gonna continue with this. Another thing that came to mind, I don't want to lose that, because that's beautiful. You mentioned your sister also attracted a man similar to your father. What do you think? I
Yeah.
mean, isn't that fascinating that we attract the type of people that we don't want sometimes?
Well, the formula is simple, and I hope this really helps if you're listening to us. It's it's how one experiences male or female energies in life, and probably the first one you come across is either mom or dad. So imagine if you were installed the way to deal with or to love man with your dad. And most women I come across, and I help them so many out of the relationships they've been repeating over and over
Got
again.
it. Until they learn the
we
lesson. Yes.
we had to change that first map that was installed with dad who was, hurting them, dad who was disrespectful. He treated them like whatever. So that has to be changed. But imagine I'm facing this now. I haven't been in Europe for a long time, and I realized now how bad it is with my sister. And there are 3 children, house and a whole existence built on it. So there comes a point where one is either submitting herself or himself into this relationship, because breaking up is such a pain and
Convenience. Yeah.
becomes so much hassle. Then there's no choice left. You start going and submit yourself in a relationship to be, you know, to be pushed down, and you end up like my mom, holding space and do anything you can, become a people pleaser to hold the peace. Because obviously if there is a conflict between mom and dad, the whole family suffers, and especially children. So and of course I now have two clients who are exactly at the point of where they tried it, the male is not ready to change, so the process of separation is already on the way, and I'm helping her to get that through safely, that the children are not suffering that much.
Wow. You know, we go through painful experiences until we learn the lesson, or until we say enough is enough. You're one of your waves first sports in a way, because you couldn't leave your home at 15 or 16. You had to do something else. But then once you were able, you went far away, first to Ireland, then to New Zealand, and then to the moon and all that. But you add that option. Maybe your sister, again, I don't know her, I'm not judging, I'm just thinking, maybe do you think that maybe she hasn't hit rock bottom to tell her enough is enough? That's why she has to go through the same painful experience until she says, enough is enough. I need to do something. Yes, it's and each as the more we wait, the more it's going to become painful.
My understanding is this: there is the moment of clarity is always coming, and I think for a lot of people it's right before the moment of death. For some, the learning takes place a few weeks or months before. So hospice work, there's a beautiful book, it's called Five Regrets of the Dying. It was written by Rhonda Byrne. If you're listening to us, look up that book. It's
Say,
about,
what's the name again of the book? I'm gonna
I
write
think
it
it's
down.
called The Main Five Regrets of the Dying.
Oh yes, the main five. Yes, yes,
And
yes.
and this is how people dying actually in the last few months. The book is about how people started to realize all of the things they have gone, I'm not saying wrong, but they haven't served themselves, and they haven't had a life authentic to themselves. And it's okay for anyone to wake up in the last moment, that there's nothing that can be done about it at that point. And of course, as we are spiritual beings, maybe there's another life, but like, what if you did not? If you're listening to us, what if you did not waste half a life or your whole life in these patterns, telling yourself, this is I have to do? But what if there's nothing you have to do?
Absolutely powerful, beautiful. Another episode that I want to come, because this is fascinating. You mentioned one day you woke up and your wife told you, is it time for us to divorce? Walk us through that. What went to your mind? Did you see that coming, or was that a complete shocker for you?
Well, I was so ashamed
Mm,
because I've seen like, imagine going out to Sydney, Australia, property prices are really high.
mm,
I had 20 years delay with arriving on the property market. So I saw, well, we're going to rent here because properties are 500,000 or over 1 or 2 million, the ones I would really want to live in. And I felt ashamed that I cannot, because my wife wanted a house. That was her dream. I said, well, I cannot give it to her, especially not in a suburb, which is ideal. And I had this pain. Sometimes I was crying. I said, how could I end up here, not being able to provide for my family what they deserve? So it was coming, yet, unfortunately, it has come to that point where she said, and she was right. She was right. Like, it actually didn't make a difference at that point whether I was at home or not, because when I was at home, I was not present. I was doing my home business, or I was sleeping. Or when I was away working, I wasn't there at all. So it made perfect sense for her to ask that question that has changed pretty much the course of my life, there was one big other moment with my coach, but I'm not too sure if we have time for that.
Sure. Tell us, what is it?
Yeah. So I think, again, one of the biggest learnings in life, if you didn't get it, will come through your children, because you could, when you start to play life at a high level, probably what you will see in your children in some way a reflection of you.
Absolutely.
But I was blind to this, right? So I was already becoming a coach. I was learning the skills. Probably my son was about 8 years old, playing soccer. Guess what? And he was one of the most skilled player in the team, 8 years old. And he's telling me he's not trusting his teammates.
Wow.
Well, I was learning to become a coach, and I'm like, the techniques are not working here. I can't help this boy, yet I'm supposed to be his support, his dad, all of those things. So I started to sort of peel this off, that, he's not trusting his teammates. He hasn't scored a whole goal in the whole season. Totally unreal situation. And I realized he probably is not trusting himself. So I said, I need to fix him. Now, you know what happened when I went to see my coach, my mindset coach? He had one question that changed the course of my life at that point, because I was sort of becoming a coach, doing coaching, not really broken out as a brand. He had one question. He said, well, is his father scoring goals in life?
Oh, I love it. Let me write this down. Damn.
I didn't want to be there. That one question shifted everything, because I knew it was not about my son. It wasn't even, it was the massive reflection of me never getting what I deserve. It's me playing small. And that was true, because I was so afraid, fear of failure, probably fear of success. And what happened at that point, I did the work. The next year, the reflection has changed. My son has scored probably 5 or 6 goals, happy, full of confidence, shifted. The work was not with him for me to fix him. There was nothing to fix.
Because you can feel the energy, because, who's the number one hero for kids, especially for boys, as the father. And if the father, lack of self-confidence and playing small, not successful, it's going to affect on them. Say, oh, maybe but if you say a father full of energy, confident, leader, charismatic, they will feel such an amazing confidence. They will feel invincible, because their hero is someone they're really looking up to. If they see their father being shy and successful, they will feel ashamed in a way, but they won't tell you, but they will show it. That is incredibly powerful. I wrote this down. Wow. I'm getting goosebumps right now, if you can see it.
I have them too. But this is
Wow.
where parents fail. I just let me just drop you this as well, because this is a big bomb, that this is where most people fail. They are preaching, teaching, instructing their children, yet when it comes to how they treat themselves, what they actually get from life is completely the opposite. So in essence, if you're a parent and you're listening to us, you can't cheat this out. You've got to break out of your own old identity or old life to be the example, an inspiring example. And then your children, you wouldn't need to teach your children anything, because your life is your message. The results you get is your message. The freedom is the message that you have been able to unlock and create. And this excites me the most.
Leading by example, in other words. Absolutely. Inspiring by example, not just leading by example. Yes. Wow. Incredible. Andre, this is one of the most beautiful conversations I had on podcast in a long time. Love that. Went completely off the structure, but
Land.
I don't care. I don't mind, because something even more beautiful came out of it. We'll we'll call it a day for part. This is let's put it today as part one. We're gonna do at least 2 or 3 more episodes because so much wisdom, so many gifts that you've been blessed with. I would love for you to come and share them. We'll do that. So listen, if someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
Well, the easiest is just put in hashtag Doctor of Self-Worth and you end up probably one of my social media channels. Or look at my website. It's called www.doctor, that's DOCTOR, of selfworth.com. And you'll be able to learn more about me and download my book. There's a free book. It's called How to Uncover Your Authentic Self faster than you ever thought possible, because you deserve that, the true version of you.
Beautiful. If you could give one tip to anyone who's stuck by any limiting beliefs or ideas or anything, one actionable tip, what would it be?
Well, it's not one. I can't do one, but
Of
I
course,
make it really short. So you, regardless of what you see around you, believe that there is another possibility, another potential is possible for you. Then look for someone. This is the key to make it fast. Look for someone who has been able to help people like you, because there will be someone who has consistent results in getting people out of the problem that you have. That's the person you want to spend time around with, or maybe one-on-one.
Beautiful, powerful words. Thank you. Listen, I salute you. You're a true leader with a heart. Absolutely love your message, your enthusiasm, your gifts. This is not even part one. This is like an appetizer that we're doing. There's so many we can do. Uh, I'm looking forward already for our next beautiful conversation on the podcast. I salute you. You're true leader with a heart. Keep shining your light. Keep blessing the world, your presence, your impact with everything you're doing. Stay safe, stay awesome. God bless you. And once again, Happy New Year's. And talk to you very soon, my friend. Take care.
Happy New Year. I was so happy to be here and share this.
Pleasure's all mine. Take care.